Hi, and welcome to Produce Talks, the CPMA podcast. I'm your host and CPMA Education Manager, Jason Gorley. Before we get started, I just want to remind you that you can subscribe and rate us on Blueberry, Nobex, iTunes, and the Google Play Store. I also want to let you know that you can check out elearning.cpma.ca to find all the latest on CPMA education and training offered online. Also, our Passion for Produce program is opening up for application between October 3rd and December 16th. All right, before we get started on this month's podcast, we have Selena here to tell us all about the winner of this month's Fresh Health Award. Selena, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Jason. So our Fresh Health winner of this month is Ippolito. And if you've been on the Half Your Plate website recently, you'll notice a series of fantastic educational videos featuring our ambassador, Chef Michael Smith. Ippolito is one of the fantastic sponsors of these videos, so you should go check them out. You're going to see some great new recipes and some really easy ways to fill half your plate. Congratulations, Ippolito.
Thanks, Selena. All right. So on this podcast, we're going to take a look at social license. Social license is a term that's becoming more prominent the last few years. So it's closely linked with corporate social responsibility, and it started to emerge as a concept that some companies and industries are starting to create an organized response to. On this episode, we'll connect with Janice Tranberg, who's the executive director of SaskCanola. And under her leadership, SaskCanola produced a documentary called License to Farm that explores the concept of social license. This documentary provides an overview of how producers can handle controversial topics and how it's crucial for producers to engage with the public to maintain public confidence. I hope you enjoy listening to our conversation with Jan. All right, and joining us on the podcast today is Janice Tranberg, and she is the executive director of SaskCanola. And they've done a project around social license called License to Farm. Hi, Janice. Thanks for joining us on the podcast.
Thank you.
So I thought we'd start off first. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about what social license is. It seems to be kind of a new term that's being thrown around. Is this a new concept?
Well, no, actually, I don't think it is a new concept, but it's probably something we haven't paid enough attention to in agriculture. We talk about social license being the level of public trust that's granted to an industry by the community at large and its consumers. That's what we talk about when we say social license. But in agriculture, and with license to farm, it's not a literal license. We have farmers that have an abundance of good land. People have passed down their family farms for generations, so they have, in essence, their license to farm. But when we're talking about social license, it's really more so about the ability of a farmer to farm using all the using all their knowledge and all the tools that they have to manage their farm in the best way that they know how.
With that acceptance from the community, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit about this License to Farm project? I have a couple of specific questions. One was that you focused in on certain areas or chapters, and I'm kind of wondering why these topics were chosen and just how the project came about.
Sure. Well, so SaskCanola is run by a board of directors that are all farmers. So it's a completely farm organization. Sitting around the table, they're always talking more and more about public distrust, and they were concerned and really wanted to do something about it. So when the concept of this came to us, and we were approached by an independent film crew, and they came to us, the board thought, this is great. This is something that we can do to contribute to the industry at large. So the film's not about canola; it's about agriculture writ large. And when the film crew came to do it, they had no scripts. They had ideas. They went out. We helped them find some of the people to interview. Some they found on their own, but it wasn't scripted. It was really quite real. And why did we pick the 3 questions that we picked? It was because those are 3 of the questions that our farmers hear on a regular basis. They hear people ask them, genetically modified foods or GMOs, Are they safe? And people are really concerned about that. They get questions about pesticides. There's a belief that farmers just liberally are out there spraying their fields with all kinds of pesticides. And then the third one was really about this romantic ideal that, the image of a farmer is still someone with a pitchfork and a piece of straw in their mouth. And they're concerned that farms are getting bought up by big corporations and it's no longer that small family farm, when in actuality 90% of the farms in Canada still are owned by families. So these were three questions that they hear on a regular basis, and we thought that we could tackle.
Now, there was another section, too, that I really zeroed in on, and it was about how important it was for the farmers or businesses, really, to tell their story. So can you talk a little bit about why it's important for that to happen?
Well, the why simply is because if you don't say what you do and tell your story, then someone else is going to tell that story for you. And they may not know all the facts that you know, and they may not tell the story the way you would want it to be told. So if you don't tell the story, then we're basically allowing everybody else to tell the story. And further to that, we do know that farmers are still credible. People want to hear from farmers. They want to know how their food is growing. And so this is the perfect opportunity for farmers to talk about what it is that they do and why they do it and how they do it.
So this isn't one of the questions, but it was something that I noticed. And it was that sometimes when these type of projects come about, there's kind of an aggressive or antagonistic stance with the project, but this project didn't have that at all. Was that intentional?
Absolutely. I mean, when we were putting it together, we had to identify what was the objective of the License to Farm documentary. And there's many audiences that are out there, but we felt the one that we would be the most credible to is a farmer. And so, and the message that we wanted to get across to the farmer is talk about what you do. Tell people. And it doesn't have to be a big campaign. It can be as simple as talking to your neighbor, talking to the grocery store attendant who's never been on a farm, and just start having those conversations. So we didn't want it to be antagonistic. We wanted to be very encouraging and inspirational.
And we're going to take a short break to hear from our sponsor, Nature Fresh Farms. All right, and I have with me Ray from Nature Fresh. Ray, how are things going at Nature Fresh?
Well, things are going very well. Continuing on our education component, Greenhouse Education Center is making its journey towards the end of its season. However, we've got one major event that's going to occur in Toronto on November 4th to 13th. We will be attending the Royal Winter Fair once again. We've had very good success at that event in the past, with an excess of over 300,000 people traveling through the exhibits. And we look forward to sharing more about greenhouse farming at that event coming up.
Thanks, Ray. And now back to the podcast. Can you think of an example of a company or a farm that's doing a really good job at kind of obtaining social license and maintaining it?
Well, I'm sure I could give lots of examples. And as I said, I think, quite often we get stymied a little bit because we think it has to be a big thing. And it really doesn't. It can be just a simple thing as, like I said, talking to your family about it, talking to people who trust you. Lots of people are doing great work on social media. One that comes to mind is Nurse Loves Farmer, and she does a great job. But she's just one. There's many out there that are doing a good job. But one in particular, and we did highlight it on the License to Farm documentary, but would be Sherilyn Nagel. Sherilyn, with her husband and her two kids, they farm in southern Saskatchewan. They have quite a large farming operation. But Sherilyn's taken this to task, and this is something that really means a lot to her. So she's engaged in social media and other avenues. She talks to people about it, but she got involved with Farm and Food Care Saskatchewan, and they put on farmer training sessions. So she will go out and speak with farmers and help them to figure out ways to speak to people, to present, if it's a presentation or if it's just talking, and trying to help them and encourage them on the how to do it. So that would be one example.
I guess the whole purpose of the project, from how you've outlined it, was to help maintain that social license to farm. What happens in the absence of social license? And once that social license lost, how hard is it to get back?
Well, I'll give you just one example. It's something that we're facing today. It's very real, and that example might be genetically modified organisms. These are products that have been studied for years. They're probably, they are the most studied food in the world. There have been experts from around the world in different countries, independent scientists that all talk about their safety. So from a food safety and a scientific expert perspective, these foods are safe. We've been actually eating them for 20 years. We've had no cases of harm. But if you went onto the internet, that's not the message you'd get. And in large part, I think it's because we haven't done a very good job of telling the story. We haven't talked about why farmers want to use them. I mean, they've allowed us to go to things such as minimum and no-till, which has helped to preserve the soil moisture levels and organic matter in the soil. It's actually helped us to reduce the amount that we spray. These are all great things, and we haven't done a very good job of talking about it. So now we're coming at this particular issue from behind the eight ball, if you want to put it that way. We're already behind, and we're running hard to catch up. So if farmers don't stand up and talk about it, then a very real threat is that we could lose this technology. And then farmers would have to go back and find ways to do what they do without the technology that they've come to rely on. So it is a very real threat. And it's something that I think a lot of people are very nervous about talking about. But what we're trying to encourage farmers in this documentary is you don't have to know everything. You just have to talk about how has this impacted you on your farm and what you do and in your daily living.
So it's really encouraging a proactive stance, kind of maintain that social license framework and engage the community and consumers about the product itself.
Absolutely.
So can that approach, how does that approach help to maintain social license if there's some sort of crisis? Will it help protect a brand or a company?
Well, we think it's more about helping, our goal in this obviously is to protect farmers. So that's where we're coming at it from. It's really easy for a farmer to stand back and say to their local grocery store, well, why don't you trust me? But if you've never taken the opportunity to talk to them, well, then why would they trust you? Do you know what I mean? So it's sort of that, it's that idea of saying you can't say you want to do what you want to do on your farm, but then never have a discussion and let people know why you do what you do. So it's about conversations. And if we don't have those conversations and we lose technologies, then, you can't stand back and say, well, I did nothing.
So I guess that conversation is that first step. So is that your big takeaway piece of advice for a company or a farmer who's looking at building kind of a social license strategy?
Well, I think there's lots of ways to get out there. Like I said, this is just one. So, social media is a really good way to do it. Talking at different seminars or meetings or just the one-on-one conversation. So I think that a company or a farmer has to come at it from the perspective of what are their strengths. I mean, a lot of farmers might not be too excited to stand up in front of a crowd and talk about their farm. And that's okay, but they might be fine to invite their local MLA or MP onto their farm and tour them around. So it's really individual. It's got to be what you're trying to achieve and what your strengths are. But there are lots of resources out there to help you. For example, with the License to Farm, we've got a screening in the box. So if you wanted to show License to Farm, you could do that for free, and you could have a set of questions that you could sort of lead a bit of a discussion, and then a page where you could go to get some resources where you could get some answers to questions you might have. There's other websites. One that I would talk about would be the Center for Food Integrity that has, some really good answers to some of these questions that people are talking about. And then, of course, as I mentioned, there's the Farm and Food Care speakers training that Cheryl-Lynn does. So those are just a few examples of some resources that are out there. But I think the first step is to really sit back and say, well, what do I want to achieve and what are my strengths? And then start to build that platform from there.
Mm-hmm. So what kind of response have you had?
Oh, it's been so exciting. We hoped that it would go viral, and I think it's even exceeded our expectations on the last look for YouTube. And remember that YouTube doesn't include the numerous audiences that we've presented to and sent it out to and how it spread from there. But just on YouTube alone, we've had over 85,000 views in 166 countries. So it's been pretty exciting.
So if somebody wants to view the video and they want to learn about some of the resources and other things that you've built around this, is the best place to go?
So we have a website just for License to Farm. So it's, license2farm.com. And the full video is available there. As well, we have broken the videos down, as you mentioned earlier, into 5 smaller chapters that each range around 5 to 10 minutes long. So you can, if you don't have a full 30 minutes, you can sit down and watch a chapter at a time. And then coming forward, we're also going to be launching a couple new videos just with some of the interviews, taking a little bit more of an in-depth look at the interviews that were done in the making of the film. And so our first video around that will be launched in October, which in Saskatchewan is Agriculture Month. So that's another thing to look forward to.
Very cool. So is there anything else you'd like to add?
Just, that it's been very exciting. We've seen how just a simple documentary like this can get people talking and thinking about it. And I think it has made a difference. I see more and more people starting to talk about this issue, and that's really what it's all about, like I said, is engaging your neighbors and having those conversations.
All right. Thanks, Janice.
Thank you.
And that is it. That is all that we have for you this month on Produce Talks. I'd like to thank Jan for taking the time to talk to us. I'd also like to thank Selena for letting us know about the Fresh Health Award. And I'd also like to thank Ray from Nature Fresh for joining us to check in with us, and thanks for the ongoing support Nature Fresh shows the podcast. I'd also like to thank you for listening. Remember, we'd love to hear from you. You can get a hold of us by emailing podcast@cpma.ca. That's podcast@cpma.ca. Maybe you have an idea for a show, or you just want to tell us how you think we're doing. Until next time, make a healthy choice. Fill half your plate with fruits and veggies.
You will now be disconnected by the moderator.